Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, the number one source for news, analysis, and discussion on the Detroit Red Wings, the NHL, and all things hockey. Here are your hosts, Ryan Hanna, Brad Crisco, and Evan Lopsinger.
Brad, happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
You look delighted. You didn't do the whole you sleep in, the kids mow the lawn, you have a steak ready kind of thing?
No, literally the opposite.
You mowed the lawn, the kids slept in, and you made everyone else steak?
Pretty close to it. I mean, I was cooking the hot dogs at Make soccer tournament. So
You have no idea how to live anymore, my friend. You've lost your way. You are taken over by child sport fees. That is your entire life at this point.
even if I had a life outside of those things, I couldn't afford them because of all the child sports fees.
And on to the opposite side of the spectrum, Evan.
Hey, I had a hot dog today.
Hot dog?
I was craving a hot dog for lunch.
Did you make it?
No,
Whoa!
we went out and found hot dogs.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Terrible news for the folks at home. The never-ending quest to wait for Brad to forget one of our birthdays to make up for the year where both Evan and I forgot his continues, because I texted Evan at like 10:30 a.m. on his birthday, and I said, by the way, I'm going to tweet, but I'm not going to do so if Brad hasn't messaged you yet. He's like, Brad messaged me at like 8:30 in the morning. I was like, damn it, dude.
It was insanity.
You're sick.
What?
You don't even answer the group chat that properly.
If I had any belief that Brad knew how to use AI, I would say he just like has it set up to remember people's birthday and send out an automated message. But I know that can't be true.
Brad hardly knows how to use iMessage, let alone AI.
No, remember, I know how to. I choose not to.
We're joking now and we're relaxed now, but we were just counting. The NHL draft is here in a snap, and right after the NHL draft is free agency. Like, our draft review episode is going to have a free agency preview element to it, because the NHL is sick and does not know how to space things out. So it is about to be high time. So on that note, folks, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, and lots more. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we're going to be talking some Red Wings storylines, some potential targets, and whether or not certain players or positions are the solution for the Red Wings this offseason as Steve Yzerman continues to try to make this team better. We are going to be taking a look across the NHL. The Stanley Cup Finals roll on. Brad Marchand and Sam Bennett are the two leading favorites for the Conn Smythe, so that story is still a story. The crazy world of trades and potential free agents. Kreider traded. Is Zibanejad next? Peterka looks to be almost definitely on the trade block now. Lots of other elements to that. And then we're going to be continuing our circle back to 2025 NHL draft prospect profiles, another prominent name that we think is relevant to the Red Wings. All that and lots more before we jump into overtime. Very quickly, before we get into the show, the Winged Wheel Podcast is primarily supported by our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast if you want to support the show. You get access to benefits like our bonus overtime episodes. They record right after these main ones. We let loose. We have fun. Evan tells stories. It's a really good time, and maybe a little bit more unhinged than the normal show, but it seems to be, it's a nice change of pace, and people seem to enjoy it for reasons unbeknownst to me. You also get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, which is a wonderful community. Additionally, you're automatically entered into all of our giveaways. For example, we give away 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game in season directly to our Patreon supporters, and we have a lot planned for the offseason as well. So again, patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast. Aaron Ekblad is the name that a lot of people are talking about, especially if they're thinking, okay, if my favorite team doesn't land Gavrikov and we need help on defense, Aaron Ekblad's the target. It's too early to say anything for sure, and with agents and reports and whatever, a lot of water carrying going on for players, anything can change. But right now, one of the players that seems more likely than not to actually leave Florida is Aaron Ekblad, because Florida doesn't want to keep him at anything other than maybe staying at the same salary or potentially a slight decrease. And he's going to be looking to cash out as the cap goes up a lot. But is he the answer for Detroit? Because I have a lot of thoughts and questions about that. And what would it cost to get him?
So is he the answer? I'll start there. No. There's much bigger needs and better options available. But to repeat a sentiment we've said time and time again, beggars can't be choosers. He would represent a significant upgrade. He's the level of talent the Red Wings don't have the luxury of saying no to. I think the back half of that contract would be concerning because he's probably getting a 7-year deal. He's probably getting north of $8 million. But he is a right shot D, number 1 overall pick, looking likely back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. I don't think he's blown anybody away these playoffs, but he's been good. And good in the playoffs might as well be a Hart Trophy to the Detroit Red Wings. And I think because they've got Seider and ASP long-term for the right side of the D, but ASP still a maybe, this does basically, in theory, solidify half your defense for 6 to 7 years. And there's a lot of luxury to that because then you can play with the left side a little bit more. You can tinker with Edvinsson. Does he play with Seider? Does he play with Ekblad? Does he play with ASP? All options are on the table. You can spread the wealth around so you're not burning Seider out like the Red Wings have had a habit of doing. I love the idea of Aaron Ekblad on the Red Wings, despite him not being the best options or biggest needs for the Red Wings. But again, that level of player, they just don't have the option of saying no to.
I think this is where I disagree. Like that sentiment, I understand and I agree with for the most part, but I think this has a chance of running out for me at Aaron Ekblad. He is playing on a poised to be, at the time of recording, they are up 3-2, Stanley Cup winning, back-to-back Stanley Cup winning Florida Panthers team. He is a big part of that team, fair or not to say it. Like, he is a big part of that team. He came back, he had a PED suspension, so, I mean, doping's not good, but teams aren't going to be looking at that the same as like a torn Achilles. I mean, the opposite, actually.
Yeah, his is superpowered.
That's right. Yeah, he just charged up his Achilles. But in all seriousness, like, he has everything going for him to just get way too much value. Right shot. He's still 29. He won't be 30 until early next year. I see a team going out there and paying him a ton of money. And when I watch Aaron Ekblad as a player, and this isn't just a this year thing. This isn't just the PED suspension thing. I thought this for a little while now. He had that 1 year where up until he broke, what was it, his leg, like he was looking really good. But other than that, I saw a player who would get burned defensively, really relied on his defensive partner to cover him a lot. Not that he's like useless, but it's a player where, like Brad said, the back half of that contract is probably going to be ugly. I wonder if there are points in the most valuable part of that contract where you're like, we're paying $9+ million for this guy and he just got burned like that. Like, that is a second, third pairing mistake. I don't know. Like, if Ekblad's coming in at anything close to what he's making now, absolutely. All day, every day, I'll take that because based on what the Red Wings have in their D-core right now, it is an improvement. Even if he is coming in the lower end of the spectrum of what Aaron Ekblad could be, he is still one of the better defenders on the Red Wings. But if he's getting a premium, which with the cap going up, his position, his age, being part of a back-to-back Stanley Cup winning team potentially, and being a right shot defenseman, I see some teams saying screw it and paying out the nose for him, and I don't want that to be the Red Wings paying. I don't know what the number is that I'm uncomfortable with, 9.5, whatever, but it's just, it makes me uncomfortable.
I think the biggest thing for me is this: 56, 51, 71, 61. That's the number of games Aaron Ekblad has played in the past 4 years. So if you're going to be paying somebody an uncomfortable sum of money to be unavailable for 20 plus games this year, that's probably a no for me. And that's nothing against, well, maybe it is something against Aaron Ekblad, but it's nothing against the player, Aaron Ekblad. But if you're going to be paying someone that much money in a D-core where I'm in the future getting slightly concerned about salaries and are we locking up $40 million on 4 defensemen? He might not be the guy. The price tag might be too much for me. But in terms of the player, like, you're getting everything you'd probably want for the Red Wings decor. You lock up the right side for hopefully 7+ years. You bring in a guy who's potentially about to win back-to-back Stanley Cups, like, knows how to win. You'd really bring some veteran leadership into that group, but man, if he's not going to be available to play 70 games plus every single year, which, he still could, but the track record says he's not going to. That's a concern for me.
We just got to get him back on a cycle is what we need to do.
Exactly.
Make sure we
Mel won't let me get on it, so I don't see why he should be allowed, but go on.
No, but here's the thing with Ekblad, and I think it's why he's probably the most relevant conversation. When you look at free agency by and large, all things being equal, if a player's staring at 6 identical contracts from 6 different teams, so the money's all the same, what are the deciding factors for most players? Winning, weather, taxes, hometown. The Red Wings don't have 3 of those. And they won't have 3 of those for anybody in this market. But they do have hometown with Aaron Ekblad. Because he's from Windsor.
Yeah.
It was kind of how the Red Wings got DeBrincat because...
And his wife's from Leamington, very close.
Yeah.
He didn't play Windsor AAA, he played Sutton County, if I remember correctly.
Close enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, because
It's not a real place. Go on.
Michigan's not a good tax state. Call space spade. The Red Wings have sucked for a decade, so nobody's going to look at Detroit and go, that's where I'm going to win right now. And I mean, we all love Michigan, but hey, we've driven through Michigan in January. It's like it's losing out to a lot of markets in the
Michigan,
NHL.
baby.
So Ekblad at least checks the one box of maybe he takes 8.5 instead of 9.5 because he gets to be close to his family for the bulk of the remainder of his career. So, because I agree with you, Aaron Ekblad for over 9, that would scare the living crap out of me. So maybe, just maybe, he's the one guy who doesn't take a premium to come to Detroit, because you look at the rest of the free agency list, you're going to have to pay $1 million more per year for any of them if you're going to get them. Mitch Marner's not coming to Detroit for $13 million. Brad Marchand's not coming to Detroit for $8 million. Nikolai Ehlers is not coming to Detroit for $8 million. Like, and if they do, amazing.
Well, Ehlers, that would actually be a location improvement and a tax improvement.
Fair. That's fair.
When we say Michigan's not a good tax state, we mean they're not Florida, they're not Nevada. Better than the Canadian provinces. There's also the Detroit city tax, I believe, and you're getting into the weeds here. But yeah, better than Winnipeg for sure. And it has an airport.
always
An international one at that.
Detroit's airport is so good.
Yeah. But I think this is a conversation almost about all the Florida free agents, right? Like, I think a lot of them have the same sort of characteristics in what Brad's describing, like the tax, the team, the location. Like, Florida's got it all right now. So I'm cautious about some of their free agents where it's like, if we overpay and bring them to Detroit, now that they're going to need to be one of the guys on the team, I'm not sure that those types of players can live up to their contracts. The only one I would feel very comfortable with would be Brad Marchand at this point.
Yeah, that team is made, like we've been talking about it, where part of what Florida is able to do so well is elevate players and find value in depth guys. Their top to bottom depth is unreal. But when you pluck those guys out of that system, they won't be as good. It's a little bit like Cinderella after midnight. Like, they're not going to be travesties, all of them, but is Nico Mikkola going to be as important of a player or as impactful of a player on the Red Wings as he is in Florida? No, absolutely. Similarly, if you put like Olli Mata on that team, or I mean, it's a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde with Jake Wallman right now, but rewind a few games. Look at Jake Wallman. Jake Wallman isn't that wildly different of a player now than he was when he was healthy on Detroit. It's just he is in a different system. So yeah, I agree with you, Evan. There's a risk there, and you have to understand that not every player is going to be all that in Detroit or another lesser team compared to the Florida Panthers right now. And on the topic of, you're going to have to overpay $1 million for these guys, I would gladly overpay Gavrikov by $1 million or more per season than overpay Ekblad by less than that.
I'm not there on Gavrikov. They're in the same tier for me. Like,
no, really?
I would flip a coin, identical contracts. I am picking Gavrikov. I'm with you on that. But I don't think Gavrikov's that much better.
I'm fully sold on it.
I love the player, but I'd have all the same concerns with him as I do with Ekblad, just to varying degrees.
No, I think Gavrikov's the truth when it comes to defending.
Yeah, I know, but back half of that contract with his age. LA is a very defensively sound system. Like you just said, you take those players out of Florida, are they going to be any good? LA to Detroit, that's a hell of a change for Gavrikov.
Okay, but just a thought experiment here. Who implemented that heavily defensive system in LA?
That helps.
That
helps.
That's what
but
we're
he
on
also
the path
had the
for.
talent to execute it. Now, that being
Detroit's how far off is Detroit, though?
No, that's fair. And if you get a guy like Gavrikov, instead of having 2 defensemen, now they have 3. So, like, we're getting there.
You have to get there. I get what you're saying in terms of like how you'd rate the acquisition and the impact on the team. That's why you're putting them in the same tier. But I have to say, in terms of the style of player, I think Gavrikov is way more reliable, and he's not like, he doesn't bring all the elements that Aaron Ekblad has. Aaron Ekblad will deliver a forearm shiver like no one else, and I think that's probably unironically an attractive thing for Steve Yzerman right now.
And Ekblad has some offense to his game, which Gavrikov doesn't really. But obviously he makes up with that by being a much
So the Red Wings
defender.
going to have to overpay every single player they bring in. Like, you got to get savvy with some of the guys. Like, you can't be saying, oh, we have to overpay on every free agent. Like, you're going to have to not at some point. Well, otherwise, you're overpaying everybody.
There would be an interesting thought experiment here to the list of free agents. And like, you just list the top 20 free agents and you go, imagine in your head how much you think they're going to make. Now add $1 million to it. Where's your line of, I'd rather pay them that versus do nothing in free agency? Pay them that or do nothing? Because I think everybody agrees here, like another offseason of adding 5 depth players for $2 million does not help the Red Wings.
So if you could find a Gavrikov light, but it would cost you $3 million less a season, would you not do that?
Yeah, of course, but then I would also go for Gavrikov.
But you're tying up $21 million over 7 years.
Yeah, but then
It's
you
about
should be able to play defense.
It's about the certainty and the talent. Because that's the thing, like Aaron Ekblad would be great. You could absolutely try to recreate him in the aggregate, as we always call it. Dante Fabbro is probably going to get 5. Okay, what percent of Aaron Ekblad is Dante Fabbro? Some people will argue 98%. Some people argue 50%. Like, the problem is the Red Wings have tried this a lot. And this is the part that I can't ever get out of the back of my mind in these conversations. They're very bad at identifying those guys.
Yeah.
They have tried to recreate a number 2 center. Hasn't worked. They have tried to recreate a top 4 defenseman. Hasn't worked. Like, they are awful at identifying that second tier guys. Part of the reason, obviously it's not the only reason, but part of the reason I want them to go big game hunting, Marner, Marchand, Gavrikov, Ekblad, is because we know beyond a shadow of a doubt they're good. They might only be good for 3, 4, 5 years, but they're good. I will pay $3 million more a year to know beyond a shadow of a doubt they're good, because I don't want to pay another $5 million defenseman to show up in Detroit and it turns out, oh, in fact, he was a pumpkin. Like, they can't keep doing that.
The recreate in the aggregate thing, like, it's a bit of a meme, but that's also what teams try to do. But it came out of like Moneyball and baseball more than anything else. Sabermetrics, really the first major sport to lean that heavily into analytics. But baseball is so much more of a chess match and a numbers game. I don't think recreating the aggregate is something that you can do easily or often in the NHL. You kind of need the pieces to recreate in the aggregate, but you just call that your bottom 6, and you need the talent in your top 6. Because if you don't, you get burned.
Yeah,
you get burned.
Because if you have if you have 3 left shot defensemen and your second pair and third pair left shot defensemen make $5 million each, and you play them for 30 minutes a game combined, They are not providing the value of the $10 million defenseman who's playing 30 minutes on the top pair. Like, that's kind of to your point of it's like we use the term recreate it in the aggregate. I understand it's not possible in hockey, but kind of getting that value where you can get it. Because there are players in free agency who are going to make $4 million that are a lot better than $4 million. They exist. We see it every year. Great value contracts. Kasper, Perron, Detroit's had a couple there, but by and large, the Red Wings are awful at identifying those guys, and when they get them, they don't keep them. Because who are their most underrated, like good value signings the last handful of years? Wallman, Suter, Perron, Kasper. Say what we want about his defensive game. Sprong provided a ton of depth scoring. Gone. So even when they do it, they screw it up. Like, it's, again, I'm being overly critical here, but it's kind of the concern. Like, we all want to talk about value and where's your value. The Red Wings can't find it. They have a big enough sample size to know they're not good at it. That can't be the play anymore. They're excellent at drafting and developing. The pipeline is loaded. Even if half of their key prospects pan out, that is a lot of problems solved. They just need to go get the sure things.
So maybe my question or business case would be, falls back to the conversation we've had a long time ago, was you save the $9 million, you pay a Dante Fabbro $5 million, and you go big game hunting for forwards instead. Because for me, the bigger problem exists with the forward group. For the defense, if ASP hits and Bouillon hits, we're fine. The Red Wings decor is mostly fine. You find some minute muncher, a lunch pail guy who makes $3 million, $4 million a year, you're set. My problem starts when we're talking about $9 million for this guy, and then Seider, and then Edvinsson, and then ASP. Do you save some of that money that you would be putting into a Gavrikov or an Ekblad, and you sign someone less like Fabbro, and you go out and you get you overpay for the Mitch Marner, you overpay for the Ehlers, you overpay for whomever, but they are a certified top 15, top 20 player in the league.
I would buy into that argument, Evan, way more if this was like 4 or 5 years ago and the cap was looking flat and,
So they're going to overpay in both positions.
Yeah, I think I just the sun's out. I'm feeling good. I had a great range session the other day, so maybe I'm just feeling a little loosey-goosey. I don't think it's a
guy
binary.
hits 3 drivers straight in his life. All of a sudden, he's this crazy wild man.
I called my dad. It was unreal. Go for both. The cap is going up by roughly $1 quadrillion. The cap's going up by the GDP of a small island nation over the next 5 years. You have a window with Dylan Larkin and Alex DeBrincat, not to mention other guys, that is getting smaller and smaller. Get better now, because that's the track you've committed to. Why try only one thing? This is a league that is rewarding teams that go out and make big decisions and move big chunks of cap out. Start to mortgage futures to move a big chunk of cap out if you have to. If it means you get Gavrikov and Ehlers and Fabbro, if you can get multiple guys, do big surgery.
I have never more agreed with the general sentiment of your statement, but disagreeing with just about every point you made with it.
Cool.
I'm with Evan in if I had to identify of all the players in the trade market, free agent market, who are reasonably expected to move, my top 5 targets are all forwards. I'm with Evan.
That's what maybe that you're putting it in a better way than I can, because the decor this offseason from a free agent perspective doesn't really excite me that much. And I truthfully see the future of the Detroit Red Wings decor not being a problem.
Yeah, but this is my...
Right now, yeah, it's terrible. It's horrific, Ryan.
My follow-up, though, is this is where I kind of get away from Evan's point and into your general sentiment. If you don't get those 5 forwards out of your priority, and number 6 and 7 on your target list are Ekblad and Gavrikov in whatever order, and one of them is willing to say yes, you don't have the luxury to pass up on that level of talent where you're at as a team. Because Ryan's right about the cap. Look, the favorites to land Mitch Marner right now are the Vegas Golden Knights. The cap's not real.
It's not real.
It's not real.
You do whatever you want.
And Hall, Kopp, Comfort, like they're all coming off the books in the next 2 to 3 years. Like all of them. Like you are getting a ton of cap space, even without factoring in buyouts. Yes, forwards are the priority for me by a pretty wide margin. But if the only guy who's any good that is willing to sign is a defenseman, you gotta do it. And then you just figure out the cap down the road because all the good teams do it every year anyway. So there's no reason the Red Wings can't do it.
But the problem for me is defensemen get used either more and more or less and less. Like how many defensemen are playing 25 plus minutes a night and the other guys are playing 11, 12? Like for me, it's like you get your 3 stud defensemen and then the rest are your lunch pail guys, your meat and potatoes guys. Whereas your forward group, it's like we need depth. Like look at, I don't think it needs to be said, but look at Florida's third line. Like they're a first line on a lot of teams right now. So like for me, overspending on defense right now doesn't make a lot of sense, but I do agree if Gavrikov and Ekblad are like, I liked what Detroit's putting down here, and it's probably a lot of bucks, then yeah, you go out and get those guys.
Well, because where I fall, and this is, again, circling back to Ryan's point about the rising tide with the cap, and it's a poor justification because it is what it is, but we'll just do it for the sake of argument. Say the Red Wings sign Aaron Ekblad for $9 million, 7 years. Seider's making less than that. He's making 8.5. You got to assume Edvinsson's probably going to get the Ekblad or the Seider contract in this scenario.
I have some hope they might be able to keep him. We'll see. The cap going up.
There's
that much
only
is
so many
screw it.
guys who can play on the power play.
If those are your top 3, Ekblad's 3 of 3, so he's not going to play the 28 minutes. That's going to be Edvinsson and Seider. But your 3 top defensemen in a world where the cap's $115 million are making like 27 mil combined at most, you can absolutely work around that all day, every day. And then if all of a sudden ASP is what we hope ASP can be, and now you're adding in another $9 million defenseman, your entire top 4 makes under 40 mil, and it's a really good top 4. And in this scenario, let's call Aaron Ekblad the weakest of the 4. You're in a pretty good spot because, you know, Aaron Ekblad at 34 years old isn't going to be able to do what he does now. But if he's only playing 18 minutes a night at that point, he could probably manage that. Like it's crappy justification, but like factoring in where the Red Wings are, you're going to have to make concessions like that up and down the roster. And God, would I rather make those concessions on an Aaron Ekblad instead of an Andrew Kopp and JT Compher.
So maybe my head's too big and I hardly fit through the door into the studio right now, but I feel like we're getting back to my point here, which is I'm going to use Gavrikov because I do like Gavrikov better as a free agent. If you have to pay Gavrikov 9, 7 by 9, and those are all UFA years, you know he's a proven commodity, and that like the cap's going up, and so people are going to be saying, oh, why would Seider make less? You're buying RFA years, etc. That's why. Seider's going to make a lot of money when his contract is up. But if you pay Gavrikov 7 by 9, that fits into the same math as what you said in terms of Gavrikov, Seider, Edvinsson, and then call it ASP. You're going to get those 4 for a really good total number, and the cap's going up a ton. So I don't see why there's a false binary here where it has to be just focus on the defense or just the forwards. I agree with you. Scoring is a bigger priority on this team. It is a bigger issue, and you have more impactful holes in your forward group because it's not just that top 6 winger. It's also most of your forward depth right now just isn't clicking or performing at all. But if you add that one guy, if you have 3 studs, we talked about it so many times, the cascade effect on this team would be massive. Seider, more of his game is unlocked. Edvinsson, more of his game unlocked. The Red Wings have 2 studs right now to varying degrees, and they can't play them together because everyone else can't hold the kind of minutes of that third stud defenseman. So you bring in a Gavrikov or even an Ekblad, if I'm saying I don't like him. Even call it Ekblad.
Why not both at this point? You guys, this is now already crazy enough.
That's too crazy for me.
Why not?
Then if multiple premium free agents say they want to sign in Detroit, you buy out who you have to buy out.
But that's what I'm saying. You can do it.
The cap's not real.
The cap isn't real. You can do whatever. Anaheim is set up as a one-stop shop for Chris Drury to just unload his bad contracts when he's done with them. Like, this is happening across the NHL. It's very doable.
Like, And
Detroit
So why isn't Detroit doing it?
because they were wanting to spread out the content into free agency, so they're not
Oh.
intruding on our draft content.
So I'm going to have a hell of a throwback for this podcast here. If you go out and you overpay Gavrikov $9 million a year, and he says, I'm coming here because all the forwards said no, then all of a sudden free agency doesn't go well for one of them, and Mitch Marner goes, you know what? I actually think I want to go to Detroit. And Detroit's looking at their $6 million cap space that they have left, and he's going to sign for $14 million. Buddy, you load up the trebuchet and you put everybody on it you need to do, and you launch them into the sun. Like, the cap isn't real. You make it work however you have to make it work.
I like the deep cut in there for the.
I believe it is
longtime
called a
listeners.
tree bucket.
Yes. That you had to be listening. We were in your basement.
God,
What
that
that?
was over a half decade ago, that one.
Hank didn't exist.
Yeah.
Hank was merely a glimmer. All right, let's take a quick break here to cool off, and then when we're back, a little bit more on Red Wings free agency before we get into the Cup Finals. Back after this. What can happen in 3 to 6 months? You could pick up a new hobby and realize you're not exactly the next superstar in the league. You could spend 3 to 6 months debating whether Detroit should trade up, down, or sideways in the draft, or you could actually start seeing thicker, fuller hair with help from Hims. That's not bad for just 3 to 6 months. Hims provides you with convenient access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. Hims makes the process simple and 100% online, so you don't have to block off time for in-person appointments or awkward pharmacy trips. The options are legit, too. Chewables, oral tablets, sprays, serums, and you'll work with a provider to figure out what's best for you. No insurance is needed, and one straightforward price covers the full experience. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, so you won't be alone. They can help you feel more confident about your hair and how you show up every day on and off the ice. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/wingedwheel. That's HIMS.com/wingedwheel for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/wingedwheel. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Let's wrap up the conversation about Red Wings and free agency and, roster reconstruction. We have to note here that NHL Rumor Report posted that Jeff Merrick mentioned on the sheet that Utah and Detroit are two teams that he notes as being in the goalie market this offseason. And
Because the Red Wings are trying to get rid of some of their excess goalies, right?
let's say they keep bringing them in. They couldn't possibly get rid of them fast enough. They actually have signed 4 more depth goalies since we started this episode.
I can't keep using the guy holding all the limes meme with the Red Wings and the goalies, but the opportunity presents itself almost weekly at this point.
What was that draft where we were expecting a lot of forwards and it was just defenseman? And I made that oops all defenseman cereal box meme.
Yeah.
A little while back that got switched to oops all goalies, and it has stayed there ever since. Now, here's the thing. The Red Wings have so many goalies. They have 2 fantastic goalie prospects. They have other very notable goalie prospects and players in the pipeline that we don't talk a lot about just because there's so many of them. But they still don't have a true number 1 goalie right now. And I'm of 2 minds. One is like, what else could you possibly be doing with the contracts you have at the NHL level and your prospects? But I'm also like, you don't have an answer, so you don't stop tinkering until you do have an answer. I'm kind of torn on it.
Always be looking for upgrades. I can't be a hypocrite because I do beat that to death. I don't care what the position is. If you find someone better at it, always upgrade. And the Red Wings goaltending on a generous take would be average for the league. So lots of room for upgrades there. But you got Talbot, Mrazek for the NHL. You got Cossa, and I'm assuming the guy they just signed to Czechia for Grand Rapids. And you got Gylander for the ECHL with who the hell cares? I'm not talking about an ECHL backup at this point.
Or Grand Rapids.
Yeah, or Grand Rapids, which is 3 goalies there. So now you have 5 between your top 2 again.
And Bednar's not a Red Wings goalie technically, but
yeah,
Guimond, who's going back to Moncton.
Yep. You're not acquiring another goalie without moving one at this point. You're just not. Because they've tried the 3 goalie thing multiple times now and it hasn't worked. So if they go out and they acquire a call it John Gibson for the sake of a conversation, who's an obvious upgrade. Great. You got to get rid of a goalie. Like, you just can't keep doing this, especially with Cossa. I'm not going to say he's ready, but at least being on the precipice. Like, if a goalie gets injured, it is the ideal situation for Cossa to go up and get his feet wet in the NHL. Like, that we're at that stage. If they get goalie, move goalie, fantastic. If we are going into the season with 5 to 6 established, capable goalies between Detroit and Grand Rapids, again, it's stupid. Again, I am all for upgrades, but at this one, it has to be 1 in, 1 out.
I have to imagine that if they are, and like being in the market for a goalie and actually making a change at goalie is 2 very different things in the NHL. The amount of GMs who have been in the market for a goalie and have done absolutely nothing different, because it's a whole other world of stickiness trying to make moves in that area. But I have to imagine if you're out there as the Red Wings trying to do something in net, it's for the NHL level, and there's going to be a goalie going the other way.
That's.
I think you're right in that's what would be most likely, and it could be why you saw another depth signing. Right? Maybe this is pointing to one of Cossa or Augustine being used as a trade chip. You're like, hey, I'm rich in this aspect, and I want to help my team now, and I'm willing to bet on one or the other, and so you can have the other one, kind of thing. That's a possibility.
If the Red Wings trade Sebastian Cossa, I mean, obviously the return matters, but that's a big boy play.
That is a big boy play.
That's a big boy trade.
And I like Sebastian Cossa. I do. And I think that's firmly within the, like, I want Sebastian Cossa to be the Red Wings #1 goalie and be challenged by Trey Augustine when he's ready to be the Red Wings #1 goalie. That's the ideal, is that you have that problem down the road. But does it always work out the way you think? And if you have multiple strong goalie prospects at the top of their respective levels, then you can make those big boy plays. It's not the same as trading like ASP, right? Like, how many top end right shot defensemen do you have in the pipeline? 1. You have 2 goalies who can make it now. Now, we always say goalies are voodoo, and the real answer to that is goalies are difficult to project for most teams in this league. But if you're really sold on one of Cossa or Augustine, then yeah, you can flip the other one and help your team now. Or maybe you flip a goalie for something different. But regardless, you could see that happen. I don't think that's crazy, and I think you can get attached to prospects, but you also have to recognize at some point the Red Wings have to do something with their prospect other than let them make the team or let them fizzle out.
The more I'm thinking about it now as you're talking there, I think the play that they might be looking at might actually be Gibson, because Dostal is sick. Like, he's the guy in Anaheim now. He's nasty. And Verbeek and Yzerman are friends. Verbeek's big game hunting, so he's got some value for some cap space. Bringing in a guy like Talbot to back up a young guy like Dostal makes a lot of sense. And bringing in a more established, better goalie like John Gibson makes sense for the Red Wings. That would make a lot of sense to me. But again, that's one very specific circumstance. That's not the we're in the market type scenario that would play out.
It seems like a lot of like in the weeds margin type, manufacturing a move, right? It's like you're upgrading in the margins mostly there. It seems like, why is the focus being spent there when the focus should be spent on more urgent matters with the construction of the team?
Well, is goaltending not urgent?
It's pretty urgent.
Well, I mean, I can see a path. Like, we just said the Red Wings goaltending is league average. I would say.
I don't even
No, that's on a good day.
Okay,
that's me being as generous as I can be. I even preface it by saying being as generous as I can be.
If I was a better friend to you, Brad, I'd roll the tape back right now, but I won't be doing that. So
yeah, I forget exactly how I phrased it, but that was the point. And the reality is, the Red Wings, again,
they're bad everywhere.
Don't have the luxury of not trying to upgrade everywhere. At center, at wing, at defense, at goalie. Upgrades. They need to be looking at upgrade. Like, if they come into next season with a third of the roster turned over, I think we'd all, in all likelihood, be pretty happy.
Yeah.
Depends where.
Hold on.
There's a
Depends on who they bring in.
There's a lot of minds being swept on this team anyway.
We got to get a monkey paw for this studio table. I think that'd be a really funny addition.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh man, I can't wait for Ekblad or Gavrikov. and John Gibson, and then the monkey paw curls, and it's Ryan Lindgren and Calvin Pickard, and you will like it.
I hate
Well,
the fact that
Calvin
you just said
Pickett,
that.
Stanley Cup finalist goaltender. Like, I
Just
don't
dust
know.
off his jersey. They already have it in
Exactly.
storage.
Yeah, what's the worst part about that statement? The fact that Calvin Pickard might be the end game, or the fact that it might actually be an upgrade?
Yeah.
I think for me, like what I'm trying to say is this the right spot to be expending energy right now?
If you're bringing in Thatcher Demko, yeah, why not? You know, when they say in the market, it could be, hey, Thatcher Demko's available, and we're poking around to see what that looks like. Steve Yzerman does not like Detroit's goaltending since he's been here, and he's been tinkering and trying to figure it out and get something to stick since he's been here. That is not a revelation. Like, we've known that about Steve Yzerman. He is going to tinker with this until he finds something that sticks.
Oh,
Kossa's not ready.
it's been
Augustine's
tinkering
not-
a long time. Holy,
Yeah, you're not
he's
wrong.
hated it since he got here. Why hasn't he made a monumental play?
And that could be
Circling
what he's
back
doing.
to the trying to recreate talent in the aggregate and being bad at it, that's kind of where we've been with that position.
But that could be what he's doing, right? Like, if Gibson can be had cheap, Gibson's a great sell for this guy. Has all the talent of a really good goalie in the NHL, has had health problems, but just wants a fresh start. And if you can get that to stick, maybe it doesn't cost you so much. Maybe the contract doesn't hurt. Boom. Or Demko, change of scenery out of Vancouver. Again, injury concerns there too. Whatever it might be, but he might be making a big play, Evan. That could be what he's like. I've tried to recreate in the aggregate. It sucked. Now is the time to go out and get a Demko. Otherwise, it doesn't matter who we put in front of this goalie. We're going to get an .895 save percentage, and we're looking at the Edmonton Oilers right now doing nothing in net, and it's killing them. Because even when they're playing well, Bobrovsky's making a save. And when Florida plays well, they can't get a save out of Skinner or Pickard right now.
Yeah, I don't think Thatcher Demko's quite on the level of Sergei Bobrovsky, but I get what you're saying.
He is on his day.
Yeah, but those guys are on that day every day.
That's a great point. Anyhow, goaltending is complicated, and it seems insane, but it isn't too crazy to think that Detroit could still be tinkering here. Speaking of the Cup Finals, let's jump over to that. Florida, man, not Florida, man, but Florida, man, do they look
Well,
good.
they have Brad Marchand and Sam Bennett, so Florida man does kind of fit.
How about the two Conn Smythe favorites right now? Sam Bennett's the only one. I think I checked this morning. He was like a minus 150 or something, and Brad Marchand's a plus 450 for betting odds for Conn Smythe. Sasha Barkov, who Evan thinks is the greatest player who's ever graced the ice
That's not what I
in
said at
NHL
all.
history. Evan Lobsinger. That's a real quote from
I
him.
said right now he's the best player on the planet.
He's not, though.
Who is? Sam Bennett?
Could be Brad Marchand.
Could be Sergei Bobrovsky.
Barkov's not even a
They all
finalist on
play
his
on the
own
same
team
Yeah, it's
for the Conn Smythe.
insanity.
Florida's, if Edmonton's going to do this, they're going to have to, one, get an unreal Game 6 goaltending performance, and two, overcome Florida's surgical home ice last change advantage, shutting down their best players deficit. Like, Draisaitl and McDavid have to take over, and sooner than they have in recent games. And Florida just has to have a bad game, but Bobrovsky has to have a bad game. All this to say, Florida's looking unbelievably dominant right now.
They're a machine, and Edmonton, I don't know what it is with Edmonton. Like, I found myself watching the first period of Game 5 shocked at how poor Edmonton's effort was. And I don't mean their response to Florida. I mean literal effort.
Agreed.
They were bad. Like, how do you Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals and you come out like that? And then they have a bunch of players like Evander Kane who are just getting goaded in by Florida at every opportunity. And just, unless he's taking a penalty, he's not noticeable in this series at all. And with Zach Hyman being out, that's a problem. And Edmonton just seems to, in the games that are bad, they're awful. They come out listless. They get rattled. They devolve. It's 1,000,000-1 Florida by the second period. And it's, man, I don't know. This is such a confusing series. This reminds me actually a lot of 2011 Boston, Vancouver, where either Vancouver won or Boston beat the brakes off of them. Like
we're one like greatest comeback in modern Stanley Cup final history from this series already being over.
Yeah.
Like if Edmonton didn't completely turn around game 4, this is over. Like we saw the Stanley Cup lifted last night. Like Edmonton comes on in spurts right now in this series, and we're pretty much just Florida laying an egg for one game away from them just completely controlling the series.
They have so many players with so many playoff points right now. Like, it seems almost diminishing to call them depth because they're performing at such a high level. You said earlier in the episode, Evan, their third line plays like a lot of teams' first line right now. And it's not like, oh, this guy's just having a Rafi Torres-like playoff run. Like, Sam Bennett is actually playing like one of the best players in the playoffs. Is it the same way that Draisaitl plays or McDavid plays? No, but he actually is. Brad Marchand is ageless. Undressed Jake Wallman last night and scored 2 goals.
You want to talk about effort and lacking effort of Edmonton. When you ISO Brad Marchand on those goals, like effort is just through the roof.
They are a team that has been built for this exact series, and they've made it to this series 3 years in a row, and this is the second year in a row where you're like, they're severely outplaying the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton can come back. It's the playoffs. If they put Skinner in, for example, and he just goes nuclear for 2 games, then that could be it, right? You have 2 game breakers on Edmonton, and we've seen the NHL. Just because Florida's a more complete team doesn't mean Edmonton can't win. But I was watching McDavid last night, and if it wasn't the perfect shot, he's always turning to try to find a different lane or a different opportunity. I'm like, my brother in Christ, you're down 2-3 goals. It's the third period. You got to shoot. Your time is running out. You got to shoot. This is on you. I don't care who else isn't performing. You're Connor McDavid. You're Leon Draisaitl. You have to shoot. You have to break through in this game because your team is outclassed. By and large, top to bottom, however you want to look at it, they are outclassed. Those players have to just, it's got to be everything. Empty the cartridge right now. I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Edmonton go into Florida and get the result, but we've seen them defeat taller tasks.
They have 2 nuclear codes and 2 of the
They have one of the third best player in the world.
Yeah, like the 6th best player in the world and the second best player in the world. Like they could at any moment bring Edmonton back in, but
you think Connor McDavid's the 6th best player in the world?
Oh, maybe we can argue this in the Patreon exclusive for the 7th episode in a row.
You know damn well we will.
They are missing Zach Hyman really badly right now, and the depth for Edmonton has just sort of disappeared, and Florida's just having their way with the games. It's incredible to witness if you're not an Edmonton Oilers fan.
Oh yeah, you can't deny that this is like playoff hockey to a T.
A lot of these games remember when, I think it was a Red Wings, it was one of our meetup events, they played Florida.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And after that game, I think a lot of us realized how far Detroit actually is from being a contender. I kind of get that vibe with this series, but to a smaller degree.
I remember when we talked in the episode after that game, we talked about how good Florida is. And I remember a specific YouTube comment we got, and it was like, why are you guys talking so much like Florida's so good? Detroit laid an egg. And I was like, no, they are so good. That was clinical. They went on to win the cup. Like, you could see, all you had to do is play the Florida Panthers once as they were gearing up for the Stanley Cup playoffs last year. And you're like, oh yeah, this team they're going to chew up everyone in front of them. That's what they did. That's what we're doing. I'm curious to see if we're talking about a Game 7 or a Stanley Cup being lifted by next episode.
Who said Florida in 6 again?
I think it might have been you.
I just knew. Just like how I know Mitch Marner is going to be a Red Wing.
You know he's going to...
I took a lot of heat for that, actually. There are a lot of people asking a lot of questions after. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know what the contract will be. I just know that's going to happen.
Well, after those statements, I'm going to congratulate the Edmonton Oilers on their first Stanley Cup and Mitch Marner, his new life in Las Vegas.
Yeah, no kidding.
You're welcome, Las Vegas and Edmonton.
This is the downfall of Lobstradamus. All right, let's jump over to the rest of the NHL. It's continued to be insane. like absolutely insane. The whole spiel I gave last episode of every agent is feeding every piece of news on every player right now. And then you have every player being a trade target. I guess I'll start with Buffalo. Even though they initially, there's some pushback in the idea that they'd want to move JJ Peterka. Yeah, his name's firmly out there now, and it looks like he wants out. And Buffalo may have to listen to offers.
Yeah, when you do up a contract and the team says, we don't want to trade you, and the player goes, oh, that's unfortunate because I'm not signing, kind of forces their hand. And that's the type of winger you want to trade for with his production and age and all that fun stuff. Find it incredibly hard to believe with how many suitors he has that he'll be traded within division.
Yeah, but if you can do it, man, Ivan, I think, was the one who said a few episodes ago, like, that's a guy who checks so many boxes. Like, if you can, you don't even have to get Peterka to steal. I'm happy to overpay a divisional rival for Peterka.
No, I am too. There will be other teams that are also willing to overpay that are not in the Atlantic.
Yeah. Speaking of a divisional opponent who has a player who wants out, Isaac Howard seems to be, again, we talked about him a long time ago, Hobie Baker winner, a guy who really should be making his way on the Tampa Bay Lightning, but it looks like that whole relationship is completely divorced. So if he's going, that's not JJ Peterka, but that's a guy you're seriously looking at to say, are you helping our offense? Doesn't feel the same exact role, not the same player, but still could help your offense.
I've had a lot of questions online about would you trade 13 for him? And like, I'll just say it here. No, absolutely not. Not even a consideration. But you got to think Tampa's compensation if he doesn't sign with them is a late second round pick. So there's your starting point, and then it's a bidding war from there.
Yeah. I have to imagine Tampa's going to ideally move him out west if they're going to move him and not just take the compensation pick. Speaking of out west, unsurprising, but more and more reporting coming out that Mitch Marner is not only very likely, if not guaranteed, to not return to Toronto, not even picking up the phone in terms of trying to arrange a sign-in trade or anything to get the Leafs any value. So nothing's done till it's done, but I think Friedman mentioned that he thinks it out west is the most likely option. Not that Detroit's out of it, but with Vegas and maybe Florida. So you're looking at tax-free teams or other teams out west in addition to Vegas. Detroit's name isn't exactly coming up a lot in terms of what's being leaked, presumably by Marner's camp right now. We'll see what happens when contract offers are on the table come July 1. Not that Detroit's out of it, but the Eastern Conference teams, Eastern Seaboard teams, whatever, they're not exactly front and center for the Marner services at the moment.
Carolina makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
I'll say all markets are mostly smaller than Toronto, but probably less media scrutiny, less attention in Carolina. Plus, they lost out. They had and then lost out on the Mikko Rantanen sweepstakes, so they probably want to do something with that money. That would make a lot of sense to me as well.
It's so funny hearing, Carolina is willing to pay over $14 million. I'm like, Carolina's hardly willing to pay their head coach. Like, since when are they willing to pay the most for anything? Be it a food vendor or a third-line defenseman. Like, what? These Carolina Hurricanes, that Tom Dundon?
Yeah,
Maybe.
It's super confusing. But I think we've talked about this a few times. Like, the Metro is maybe the fraud squad division. But if Carolina can load up, they could, make another run again until they have to play an Atlantic Division team. So why not? I think right now they're kind of firmly in their window.
You absolutely have to if you're Carolina. You have no choice but to do it. You're not going to tear it down, but you're right. That division's been fraudulent when push has come to shove, so you have to do something big. More out there, Kreider, actually, we didn't actually talk about the Kreider trade, but Kreider was traded from the Rangers to the Ducks. He joins Trouba over there, much to the laughter of a lot of Rangers fans who see those two reunited. In a trade where Anaheim just takes the contract full bore off the books. The full trade was Carey Terrence and a 2025 third belonging to Toronto in exchange for Chris Kreider and a 2025 fourth that belonged to Anaheim, and no salary retained there. So
that's a horrific deal, right?
That's not great for the Ducks. You're taking on the full pop to basically move up 15 picks in the draft after Chris Kreider's decline this year was steep. Don't get me wrong. He's still an upgrade on whoever they're going to be replacing in the lineup. So I see the value in having even a dwindled version of Chris Kreider for the Anaheim Ducks, but you don't just take the contract at full pop for essentially nothing.
2 years at 6.5. I agree. I think the Rangers are under pressure here. They had to get rid of Cap to do what they want to do. This is the second time the Ducks have taken money from the Rangers. I'm actually not as low on Chris Kreider as a lot of other people. I think I'd be willing to experiment with what's actually declined in New York and what has been a cause of all of the rot in New York. But that doesn't matter. Like, I think Kreider can go in and help the Ducks for 2 years at 6.5 and be worth most of that money. And remember what money is worth to teams coming up compared to the top teams who are trying to win the cup every year. But they still should have squeezed them for something more.
They're essentially helping the Rangers free cap space to sign their free agents or their pending free agents and or get better. And the Rangers doesn't make sense to me.
And they want to go out there and sign RFAs and do offer sheets. It's like, okay, it's public knowledge. You want to do that? Great. Pay us something to take on Kreider. Even if it's a decent pick, you know?
Retain a little bit and throw in a pick for it, and it makes a lot more sense to me.
It's not consistent with what you've seen elsewhere. The Rangers are an interesting team. Like, what are they going to do with Zibanejad? A lot of time, a lot of money left on that contract. What do you think of the player? Is some team going to do something similar? Are they going to have to retain on him if they move him? Is Lafreniere actually on the market? Keandre Miller seems to be poised to be moved. Then you look at teams who are like true sellers, like Pittsburgh, who seems to be wanting to sell Carlson and Raquel and Russ. Like, there's a lot of names here where, even though they're not like the top sexy name for the Red Wings, to varying degrees, they could be decent additions for the Red Wings.
I agree. Erik Karlsson could be a decent addition.
I refuse to help the Pittsburgh Penguins when Gavin McKenna's about to be drafted. I refuse. I absolutely refuse.
That's the best point anybody's made on this subject.
And you know full well they're going to trade Rust. They're going to trade Karlsson. They're going to win from like third spot in the lottery, and then they're going to be saved once again, and then they're going to be sold. FSG is going to sell them for $5 billion because they now have the next Crosby once again.
I will. That actually might be the most angry I've ever been at Gary Bettman if that happens. Even if it happens totally randomly, totally innocently, I will still be like uncontrollably angry.
So talking about Zibanejad, he would actually make the Red Wings just a little bit slower, which is a terrifying thing to think about because he has some of the heaviest boots in the league.
He also has a full no move clause, which I'm pretty sure I saw him saying at some point. He's implying he's not going to waive it. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Things seem to be sour in New York, and he's starting to see his buddies go. And it might. Also seen some people suggest that they are coming to the understanding that it could be time, even.
But again, who's taking that contract?
$8.5 million through 2030.
No, thank you.
Absolutely not. Half retained and you give them to us for free, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, that's about where it's at.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, he's 32 right now. But Mika Zibanejad it's not like he's a bad player. He's a great player.
But he ain't an $8.5 million.
I wouldn't say he's a great player.
That's a good point. Yeah. Depends on if we're using capital G. Definitely not then. But
his 5-on-5 game leaves a significant amount of desire. Like, it's just, he's a power play merchant.
Here's what Mika Zibanejad is right now. He's late stage Thomas Vanek.
But you can get half the salary.
You can get away with that on the third line, power play specialist, shelter role. We've seen it. Vanek was great in Detroit, but they had to tread carefully with whom he was on the ice. You can do the same thing with Zibanejad and have him be a very effective player. You don't pay anywhere near $8 million for that, even in the cap is $1 billion world. Like, that's a $4 to $5 million player at most.
I don't know.
Hey, that's half retained.
Who's going to help New York this time and just give Drury another free out?
Pat Verbeek.
So annoying. Okay. Let's go over to the NHL draft and let's talk about a player here who we've talked about before. And some people may believe that he could be there for the Red Wings. Some people think that he is poised to go in the top 10 and won't be there at 13. Some people believe that the Red Wings should move up to get this guy. Kashawn Aitcheson, a defenseman who not just is able to perform on the ice, offensive zone, defensive zone, but it really his edge is a big calling card to his game. His edge, he plays 120% at all times. Is he a player that, and circling back on him, that you're sold on for the Red Wings? Do you think he'll be there? What do you make of Kashawn Aitcheson's game, and is he the right fit?
Oh, man. This might be the toughest one to unpack of the lot. I heard a scout describe him as an apex predator. He will light a guy up at center ice and then knock out the guy who comes to fight him after said knockout. And he's not wrong. Aitcheson plays with that mentality, despite only being, 6'1". He plays big. He's strong. The skill is there, but the range of outcomes for him is extensive. He's a late birthday, so even though the offense is great, it's not as impressive as it seems on the surface, and there are a lot of questions about, does he dominate the OHL because he is so much physically ahead of everybody else, or is his talent that much ahead of everybody else? Because 6'1" in the NHL and doing to what he's doing to guys in the OHL, at that size, he's not guaranteed to do it to NHL players. There's a lot of concerns about if that offense is going to translate to the NHL at all. There's a lot of questions around his decision-making, but the toolkit is legit. So it's like, you could see a world where he is the best version of Jacob Trouba. You could see a world where he's a number 6 defenseman who's out there just to beat guys up and not really provide much value. If you're drafting him in the top 15, you better be certain. Because if you're getting Jacob Trouba at 13, even not peak Jacob Trouba, you're probably still happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced that's what he's going to be. I think it's very much in the cards, but there's a big margin of error with his projections.
This isn't a draft where the forwards available have me saying under no circumstance should they take an Aitcheson type. But I do think in general, I'm a little bit more enamored by the forwards that might be available. Understanding that neither case is likely to be, you're going to get a top 3 pick level player at 13. Like, this draft, 1, Detroit's at 13. 2, this isn't the world's best draft as of right now. We could look back in 10 years and think I'm stupid for saying that. That's just how NHL drafts go. So my preference is to look towards the forwards here now that we've done the full scouting and analysis process. But in terms of guys where I'm walking away from the draft thinking, yeah, you know what? I like the toolkit. I like the player. This fits and needed in the Red Wings system, so I can't be mad at the pick. Kashawn Aitcheson's in that bucket for me. He's not my favorite pick, but he is a perfectly good pick in my mind. Brad's analysis on him is right in terms of what he is as a player, and I have the same questions. But if this is a guy that hits and you have some version of Trouba or Radko Gudas or whatever,
Ben Trott comparisons have floated around.
Yeah, that's not a bad walk away from pick 13. That's about what you are usually targeting. There's an upper ceiling where he turns into way more, and there's a lower ceiling where you're he was a fraud the whole time and was never worth this, and that's just the way prospects go. But I like what he brings to the table. He's different than a lot of the other prospects, and I think I look more closely at a guy if Eklund falls. I think I'm on Brad's wavelength here of liking Reshny better. I think I'm taking a look, honestly, even at Bear and other players as well, a little bit more closely than I'm at Aitcheson, but he's not a do not draft to me. Perfectly good pick.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you guys are saying about Aitcheson. He brings something in the first round of this draft that I think a lot of players, it's more old school, right? He plays a more old school game, provides a lot of offense for Barrie, plays a lot of minutes for Barrie. He does, everything sort of right, with what you'd want for a 17, 18-year-old. The question This draft for me as a Red Wings fan is going to be, who are the guys available at 13? Is there a run on defensemen? There could very well be a team in the top 10 that loves Aitcheson. Philly strikes me as the type of team that's going to be looking at guys of his style. So will he be gone early? Maybe. Will he still be there? I would say likely. But it's also going to be what other prospects are available at 13 right now. Did Merca go early? Did maybe Aitcheson go early? Did Jackson Smith go early? Are there premium forwards there that shouldn't be there that the Red Wings should take instead? That's where I'm kind of falling. Are you a believer in Cole Reshny, for example? The way it's looking, I don't think Brady Martin's going to be there. But if Brady Martin's there, it's like, sorry, Kashawn, like this is a guy we didn't think we'd be able to draft. He's the guy for me. So circling back to Aitcheson's game, like, you know me, he's got my type of game that I love all over him. And he would certainly, if he hits, be just exactly what the Red Wings want. But with the variability in the mock drafts I'm seeing and just the wide range of outcomes, he's probably in my top 5 of players I would draft at 13.
Yeah, like when it comes down to who's available, I think I've got him at 15 or 16 on my list, which means no matter how the draft shakes out, he's not my preferred pick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's in range. Like he's right there. Like that wouldn't be a reach for me, given how this draft is likely to play out. And yeah, I think going back to a conversation we had earlier in the episode, the organizational needs bigger at forward. So if it comes down to a tie on perceived talent, tie should go to the forward in this scenario, whether that's Ekblad, Reshny, Bear, Lakovic, whatever your flavor is, which, by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that a lot of public lists have updated to their final things, and one of the biggest risers on a lot of them is Cole Reshny, so
they must all listen to us.
People have seen the light, but that also means maybe it makes it a little more likely, hey, teams in the, 12 to 14 range might actually take him. But yeah, I like Aitcheson a lot, and I'm not at all going to be disappointed if he's the pick, but there will definitely be a couple players on the board that I will like more when Detroit comes.
This isn't the Zeev Buium draft where he's falling down the board and you're like, oh my God, like screw the forwards. We need to draft this guy because there's no way he should be there for the Red Wings. Whereas in this draft, I think there's going to be premium forwards available there, and my preferred option is to take a forward. So it's nothing against Aitcheson's game. It's just kind of how I've perceived the talent in this draft.
Yeah, like last year we saw Zeev Buium fall, which I don't think he should have. This year, there's not a lot of high-end defensive talent behind Schaefer. You're going to see Mertka go higher than he would in other years. And that's why I actually see a team taking Aitcheson earlier than expected. So
do you like him better than Jackson Smith?
I think so.
But this is just a general comment. No, I'm trying to figure out where he's going to go as well, right?
They're back-to-back on my list.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with.
I prefer Smith just because I think the talent is greater, and the fact that Smith isn't a late birthday, the production, I feel like is going to be more translatable. But again, I think I literally have them 15, 16 or 14, 15, something like that. So I could be talked into either one.
They don't play the same game for sure, but I think they have the same level of confidence of where they could be in a lineup if in their higher end of outcomes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Aitcheson is a little flashier because he brings the snarl. Like that is such a pronounced part of who he is as a profile. And that's a big hallmark of what teams are looking for right now in the NHL. We're watching the Florida Panthers. I mean, we yelled about that a lot of the year for the Red Wings too, that they need that. So I think it's marginal, the difference between the two.
If Florida wins the Cup, Aitcheson gets bumped up 3 spots in the draft.
If Florida wins the Cup, Aitcheson might fall 2 spots to number 3 in the draft.
Honestly, I have
Brady Martin goes first overall. Brady Martin's camp calls him the next Sam Bennett, and then he goes first overall if Florida wins the Cup again.
Like he's not getting past the Rangers, is it? Like the Rangers just strike me as they're gonna take this guy.
Maybe
they also have a type, and he fits it.
Pittsburgh.
Especially if they're planning on trading Miller too. That one in, one out organizationally.
Makes a lot of sense. All right. We're going to keep coming back to not just the prospect profiles, but we're coming up on our full draft preview here. We're coming up on our final mock draft. It's coming fast. All right. With that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we're back, the final segment here on the Wing Wheel Podcast back after this.
We're going to overtime.
Overtime is brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingwheelpodcast. If you want to support the show again, the bonus episodes, the giveaways, the Discord, all of that and lots more. It allows us to do things not just like Evan buying himself a hot dog on his birthday, but new studio upgrades coming, supporting the Jamie Daniels Foundation through initiatives like Winged Wheel Podcast Nights in partnership with the Detroit Red Wings and the Grand Rapids Griffins, and lots more coming your way this summer. All right, let's take some questions from our patrons. Wheelman's Wallhouse says, lots of talk about Bennett. Has Marchand priced himself out of the Wings' reach?
The Red Wings have cap space to afford anybody they want. It's a matter of convincing them to come to Detroit.
Bennett priced himself out of a lot of teams' price ranges and then got his price so high that Florida then just had to accept that they're going to have to end up paying him $8 million. Like the ridiculous number someone else was going to have to pay is he's just going to get in Florida now. Like if Bennett wins the Conn Smythe, what would he have to get on the open market on 7 years?
Oh, he'd get 9 or 10. He shouldn't, but he will.
So, but yeah, I don't think Marchand has priced himself out. Like if 8.5 is the biggest number he can get anywhere and it's being offered in Detroit, then I think that's perfectly within range still, especially because he'd be on a short-term deal. Jack's dad says, Brad answered my last if you were Detroit's GM question with he'd jettison Holland, Tarasenko, go after Robertson and sign Ekblad. He also mentioned Lafreniere. Compare the cost between a Robertson-Ekblad scenario and a Lafreniere-Keandre Miller scenario. Which one would you do? And would either one handcuff Detroit's ability to swing big for one of next year's big-name UFAs?
The salary cap's not real. Neither scenario would handcuff them, and I would prefer Robertson and Ekblad, personally.
Robertson and Ekblad over Lafreniere, Keandre Miller. I think the higher end there is like...
You're going to pay more, but you're going to get more.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah, I agree. You're basically asking, do you take the proven commodities versus the younger guys who maybe still, well, definitely have some question marks to their game still?
Motown Cider says, can you help me prepare for any sophomore slumps we might see from Kasper and Johansson for next year? They were amazing this year. What should a fair regression look like?
Is there an ice cream truck outside?
I was just like, what the f*** is that noise?
That would only happen during the podcast. Why the hell are they here at 8 p.m.? Why aren't they here at like 3:30?
We just took a break. I was about to answer the sophomore slump question. We had to take a quick break there because Brad and Evan were like, is there an ice cream truck? And I was like, no, there's new builds going up. There's construction equipment. And Brad's like, at 8 p.m. on a Sunday? I went, that's a great point. Open the window. It was an ice cream truck. We actually tried to see if we could run out and catch it. But it's my old neighborhood. Those would be taken for parts. It wouldn't have been able to drive through. We have to be more on top of that next time. Imagine just like a cut and us all back with ice cream cones in our hands would have been so good.
That would have been nice.
Anyhow, sophomore slumps. It's not just about a player having a harder time in their second season. Like, you know, you figure out your golf swing and then you to try to keep those feels. It's not just that. When a player does well, they're rewarded with bigger minutes. Not just more minutes, but harder deployment. Like in the past, when you used to play Vegas's fourth line, now all of a sudden you're playing against Mark Stone, to put it dramatically. And not only that, the tape is out on you. Teams are thinking about you as a player to prepare for. They are saying, hey, this no longer is like a player playing chess for the first time. Like you understand a little bit of what they're going to do. They know how to defend against you. The better you are, the more they're preparing for you. So it's actually a little bit of a catch-22 there. So Kasper probably isn't going to score as efficiently next year in all likelihood. He could, but you're probably going to see him go cold maybe for a little while. Johansson, they're probably going to be really physical with Johansson. That's how they got to him this year with those hard second pair minutes. I wouldn't be surprised to see those things happen. Is it guaranteed? No, they could power through it. I think Kasper played really big minutes in his rookie season and did great. So he might have a smaller sophomore slump, but players see it to some degree, usually across the board. All right, let's move on here. Next question from Cletus says, I listened to Ozzy and Keats and they interviewed Todd McClellan. Awesome. And it was super interesting hearing his perspectives on coaching young players in the NHL in general, how the players are now seeking digital feedback after games rather than raw emotion from teammates and coaches, how the plane rides are silent with everyone on socials and texting rather than being with the team, playing cards, etc. How the hell does a coach bring the team together these days? Felt like communication was a big issue on the ice with Detroit last season from the eye test.
The group chat.
Yeah, they got an Instagram group chat where they just send memes to one another. That's how they all bond.
Every team
Just like us.
No, every team I've been on for the last 5 years is actually the same way. You have the WhatsApp team chat where all the coaches and management is in for coordination and updates and communications, and then the Instagram group chat where it's just the players, and it is the most unhinged, vile bullshit you could imagine, but it does bring the guys closer together.
It does make you a little sad though. Maybe this is just we're going to be called boomer for saying this by the younger generation, but sitting on long road trips playing cards with your buddies that, it makes me sad to think that might not be happening as much on team play. That is a big part of building a bond. I remember the best team I ever played on, went all the way to regional finals, represented the team in a tournament nationally. There was a point in our year where we were just a gong show, got dominated in our intra-city game, and a team that we beat twice, and then we got beat 10-1 or something. Everyone was just no one was on the same wavelength. Everyone was pissed off at each other. We had a road trip in the same hotel and the same bus for a few days kind of thing, galvanized. Then we started playing our best hockey. I think that stuff does matter. So I don't envy coaches. I do envy coaches. They make millions of dollars and then they get fired and they get paid to not work. But I also don't envy coaches to try to replicate what they used to be able to do in the past.
Reminds me of one of the NBA teams. They all brought their laptops on the plane and they all played StarCraft. It was in the finals of the NBA finals or something. They could not be pulled away from StarCraft.
StarCraft, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, better than League.
Yes.
Way better than League. I've made a lot of people offended there, and they're also all nodding their heads saying, yeah, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Last one here from listening to Ryan Hanna in the shower says, hot summer of Brad. Wait, no, pretend I never said that. Rank these scenarios in terms of likelihood that they can happen next season. Kasper, 50 points. Raymond, 90 points. Soderblom, 15 goals. Defenestration befalls upon one of you. My predictions are that Kasper gets 47 points. Raymond gets 88 points. Soderblom gets 13 goals. And defenestration befalls two of you, not Evan. Oh,
wow.
Two of us go out the window. It's not Evan. Happy Father's Day to all three of you. Brad is a dad, Ryan is the podcast dad, and Evan is daddy. Wish I didn't read that out loud. I should have charged you more for making me read that one out loud. I don't think any of those are incredibly out of this world unlikely. Kasper, 50 points would be a lofty goal, but I think he's
right there for that.
It was his second half pace.
Raymond, 90 points is a lofty goal, but
he's still on the upswing.
And Soderblom, 15 goals might actually be the least likely of them, but if he can find another step still.
Yeah, I'll go in order of likely to least likely. Defenestration, Kasper, Raymond, Soderblom.
I think I'm about there too. Those windows might be triple paned. So you're really going to, I think all of us are blessed with large noggins. So we probably do have the payload to get through that window, but it's going to take some force.
McKenna to the Penguins, and I will make it work.
Evan's going to be out there pulling rocks and stuff just to make sure you have the toughest landing possible.
Yeah, I don't want to limp away from that wreck.
Okay, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Wing Wheel Podcast. It's getting later in the evening, and we're going to probably go sprint after an ice cream truck one neighborhood over at this point. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. Thank you to the sponsors of the Winged Wheel Podcast for helping make this show happen. And to all our Patreon supporters, we can't thank you enough. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast. If you want to join the WW Club and support the show, if you want to help us out, but Patreon's not for you, that's totally cool. Wherever you're getting this podcast, whether you're in, I don't know why you want us to see us in 4K 60 on YouTube. If you're watching in 4K 60 on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, subscribe to the show. Leave a thumbs up, a like, a review, a rating. tell a friend about the show. All of those are things that really help us out. To our name level supporters on Patreon, we cannot thank you enough. Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Aikfer, THL Champ, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Glenn Brabham, Rain, Dano, Sea Lion, Matthew M. Rice, Adam Rose, Adam Zuiza, Admiral Matt S. of the Cheesebag Navy, Alex Toger, Anna Sleeman, Asher Killian, Beer League Legend, Best James Bond, Bingo Bango, Braden Evans, Thighs and Toes Podcast, Butts Carlton, Carl Bertin, Analuski, CB55, Citizen High Five, Clip Clop Nene, Connor Scovey, Craig Kibble, Denny's Gamer Girl, Dirk and Stam, DJ Denton, Eric Hill, Give Blood Fight Probert, Grand Rapids Girly, Griffin, God Creatives, Hockeytown Love, Hockeytown Matt, Hassam Al-Qassem, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Jeff Pridemore, John Ingalls, Jonathan Miller, Kalen Wood, Kip Tira Jr., new name level supporter, welcome to the Dub Dub Club, Mark Hernandez, Matt McKay, now I have to learn how to click on a Macintosh, Marty, Mr. Kuzi, Podgy713, R.A., Roy Dunk, Ryan Britt, Sam Bankson, Slim Smitty Cards, Stephen Ortlieb, That's What I Appreciate About You, Wallman's Elite Dancing D, William, brand new name level supporter. Welcome, William, to the Dub Dub Club. Thank you so much for your support. Wings fan of Chicago, Eyes Are Playing Stan, Aaron Hudson, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, A.A. Ron, All Motor No Hands, Ann Stanislavski, Axolotl, Sardine Pelican, Bellingham Acid Balls, Bex, C.E. Hayes, Chris Flinsky, Clay Adams, Commander Ben Barron of the Cheesebag Space Force, Connor Layton and Corey Prida, Darren Fick, Drop the Puck, Dylan Larkin, Trade Sacrifice, Eric Nance, Evan Beckner, Evans Brown, Pomeranian, Evans Smooth, Marbles, Frank Stanley, Gene Sullivan, Grepsky, Griffey Boy, James Pridemore, Johnny Page, Jeremiah Dobo, Jim, JM Rhapsody, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Linda Hull, Living Rent Free in Edmonton's Mind, Lonnie Zone, Lucas Raymond, Marco Casper, the Task Manager, Matt Keeler, Mitch Minier, O. Ophelia, As Good As It Gets, Peter Swanson, Rosie Posey, Roy Mudbutt, Steven, That Other Guy, The Hodag, The Hat 123, Trent Thorough, Reed, contractual reasons, can't read that one out. Wings fan in St. Louis, Scott, your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. We'll talk to you midweek.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to visit wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find ways to support the show, like Patreon, official podcast merchandise, and more. And don't forget to follow us on X at Winged Wheel Pod, at Ryan Hanna, WWP, at Brad Crisco, and at Hockeytown Evan, as well as Winged Wheel Podcast on Instagram.